Start off the program by saying I don't side with the players here, and I don't side with the owners either, because what we're talking about here is a multi-billion-dollar organization, if you will, squabbling over who should get more of those billions of dollars in revenue. And in the meantime, since the lockout commenced just a couple of days ago, we are starting to hear more and more stories about the people who are really going to suffer the most from this lockout. And it's not the players, it's not the owners, because they don't live paycheck to paycheck. Instead, it's the people who work for the organization behind the scenes. It's the people like the guy who has a family of 4, who augments his income by walking around Meadowlands Stadium with a hot dog cart wrapped around his neck in 20 below zero wind chill weather to sell a bunch of drunks hot dogs and get $6 an hour to do that. It's the people like the public relations secretary, who's been told by so many organizations already that they have to lay her off because they don't know if they're going to have enough money or if there's going to be a season to pay them their pittance of a salary as it begins. These are the people who you don't hear about very often when it comes to the National Football League. You don't hear about the interns. You don't hear about the guy who stands in the booth to collect the $25 that you have to pay to put your car in a stinking lot, and who in turn gets $7 an hour to collect that $25 per car that comes in to just sit there, unprotected, no doubt, no less. How about that guy who relies on that money 16, 17 weeks out of the year? How there are 16 games at Giant Stadium every year. And that's a lucky thing, because for many of the other teams, we're talking only about 8 games a year where they get pulled together and they have a chance to make money, some of these part-time seasonal employees. And don't let them fool you too when you realize that there are a ton of people inside their offices who are going to lose their jobs. The kid who's working 40 hours a week for $8 an hour to run and get coffee for the general manager. The kid who's just out of college and is taking a pittance of a salary so that he can get some experience. They're going to tell him, you know what, kid? You're awesome. We really, really like you. We really like you. But we're not going to pay you because we billionaires can't figure out how to pay our millionaire players. We can't come to an agreement already. And as Zach says, many organizations have already reduced or cut salary, cut staff. They've done this without even knowing whether there's going to be a work stoppage that really affects the schedule. They've done this without any a forethought, as far as I'm concerned, and those are the ones who are suffering the most out of all this. Think of the guy who called up Francesa the other day and said, I work at the stadium as a part-time job. I have to do it because I have kids and I need the extra money to pay for tuition and to get certain bills paid. These are the guys who can ultimately be screwed the most, because unlike the players and unlike the owners in the National Football League, these seasonal and part-time employees and some of the people who work in the front office, they live often paycheck to paycheck. And the players don't. And the owners don't. And so this utter disdainful greed between billionaire owners and millionaire players is unfathomable to me. And what I don't understand is why they waited so damn long when they had all this time to get things done. Roger Goodell is only getting $1 salary right now. I'm sure he's okay, though. I doubt. I wouldn't think that he would have to necessarily live paycheck to paycheck. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Who the hell knows with people these days? You never know. Now, let me tell you something. I just wish this whole situation could have been avoided if they had gotten their minds together and taken care of this well before now, instead of waiting to the last minute. This was the problem with baseball back in 1994. This is the reason why we lost the 1994 World Series. That was the reason why the Montreal Expos do not exist anymore, because they waited so damn long. I mean, look, the Montreal Expos back in 1994 were in first place, had the best record in baseball, and were going to be in the postseason in 1994. There's no doubt, unless they had a complete and utter collapse in the latter months of the regular season. And I don't think that was going to happen. That was a great, great baseball team that Felipe Alou was running at that point in time. But because the idiots waited to the latest possible moment, that was it for the Expos. After that, they were never really close, other than 2002. And I guess to a sense, I got to feel for some of the owners of the bigger market teams. I shouldn't be so down on the owners, because a lot of this has to do with the small market teams. And because they are together as a unit, some of the bigger market teams, I think, have no other choice but to be in this situation. But those small market teams, the Cleveland Browns, the Cincinnati Bengals, the San Diego Chargers, teams where they rely on TV revenues and they shared revenues. They need things to be changed. They do. They honestly do. And until it just drives me crazy to think that it's gotten to this point. Am I losing sleep over it? No. I'm not going to be honest. I'm not going to deny. I'm not losing any sleep over this. And if that's the way it's got to be, that's the way it's got to be. But for the poor people who are on the inside and who don't have a say in any of this, the guy who takes your money when you park your car, the guy who runs around the press box sending out press releases to members of the media, these are the ones who are going to really, really pay the biggest price, 20 to 30%. Ultimately, it'll be more than that are laid off if there is an ultimate work stoppage that causes the schedule to be contracted, or if it causes the season to start late. And as usual, it's the little guy, the middle guy, who gets caught up in this the most. It's the little guy, the middle guy, who gets screwed the most. And the billionaires and millionaires are going to be the ones who wind up on top. They're going to be the ones who wind up with the greater benefits. And unfortunately, again, the little guy gets nothing.